We have finally gotten to fight week for the most exciting card of 2025, and that is UFC 322 between Jack Della Maddalena and Islam Makhachev. This is taking place at Madison Square Garden in New York City. And man, this card is awesome. We have a lot of legacy on the line. In the main event, of course, you have Islam Makhachev trying to claim a second belt at welterweight. And we have Zhang Weili as well. She's also moving up to 125, trying to claim Valentina Shevchenko's belt and become a double champ in her own right. And on top of that, the undercard for this card is stacked as well. A lot of exciting fights. I think there's going to be a ton of finishes. And yeah, this is the big one. So we'll go ahead and dive straight into it. Of course, we'll start with the early prelim opener, and that is Vyacheslav Borshev versus Mateusz Camilo. And I can't get it open because this fight was added at last minute. I mean last minute when I say that because I didn't even know this was on the card until I scrolled down. But I have Camilo winning this fight. He was in camp for another fight a couple weeks ago. They got canceled. I want to say, who was it against? It was a guy who beat George Hardwick on Contender Series. But he was in camp. He was ready for a fight. I think Abdul Karim Al Sawadi is his name. It was for that Abu Dhabi card with Tom Aspinall and gone. But anyways, he was in camp. He was ready to go. He had a lot of preparation for that fight. It fell through last minute, so he got shuffled around. And he has a new opponent on UFC 322. I think he's going to get this one done. I think he's going to get it done by submission early as well. We've seen Vyacheslav Borshev get really bullied around in the grappling. Terrence McKinney dominated him in round one of their fight, where he was able to get him in a really tight guillotine. And I think he transitioned that into another sub. I want to say he ended up on top and got him in like a head and arm triangle or something and subbed him a couple minutes into their fight. We also saw Borshev get thrown around and just beaten up on the ground by Chase Hooper, which isn't a good look now in hindsight, because we've seen Chase Hooper lose one or two times since then. And yeah, Borshev, he's a good boxer. He's got good striking. He had a close fight with Nazem Sadikov that went to a draw, but I don't think that's where this fight's going to take place. I think it's going to end up on the ground, and Borshev is just not a good grappler in the slightest. Mateusz Camilo in his last fight against Gabe Green, he had a really tight triangle attempt against Green, and he nearly finished that fight. Now, he did end up getting subbed later on in that fight, but I think he has good enough grappling to handle Borshev on the ground. And I'm going to pick Camilo to get this one done by a round one submission. Moving on up the card, Baisengur Susakayev versus Eric Makhachev. Susakayev staying really active. Not really active, I guess, but he fought a couple months ago on that Chicago pay-per-view where he beat, I think his name was Eric Nolan. It was a short notice welterweight, and Nolan was giving him a lot of problems. That's something I do worry about. Eric Nolan was giving him a lot of problems on the feet. He hurt him at the end of round one really bad, while Susakayev was kind of showboating and doing whatnot. But that's a guy at 170 who's a lot quicker, faster, and I just think better than Eric Makhachev. Nolan looked really good in that fight. We also saw Susakayev just dominate someone in Contender Series. I think that fight's going to look similar to this one. I think Eric Makhachev is going to be in for a rough night. He's not bad. He had a very close fight with Cody Brundage, and I guess that does mean he's bad. Yeah, Cody Brundage is shit, and that was a really close fight that I think Brundage arguably could have won. I think Susakayev's a level above him when it comes to athleticism. I think that's going to be a case for him against a lot of these middleweights. He's going to be quicker. He's going to be more powerful. He's just going to be dancing around them and beating them up on the feet. I think we're going to see a round one KO for Susakayev here over Makhachev. We'll go ahead and move on to the next fight up the card. If we can click off of that. There we go. Angela Hill versus Fatima Klein. Now, I do want to go with a crafty underdog veteran pick of Angela Hill here, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go with Fatima Klein. She's coming off back-to-back knockouts. Her last fight on that Nashville card, she got a really, really nasty head kick KO. And she's quick, she's sharp on the feet, she's dangerous, and she's got a lot of grappling experience too. I was looking through her record, and she has tons and tons of grappling matches. And she's also a significantly younger fighter than Angela Hill. Angela Hill is 40 years old. Fatima Klein, I want to say, is 25. That's a huge age difference. Klein's also got height and reach advantage going into this one. And yeah, I think she's well-rounded enough to hang with Angela Hill wherever this fight goes. I think she's really dangerous on the feet, so I'm going to have her winning this one. I'll say a 29-28 decision. Fatima Klein gets it done. We'll move on. Pat Sabatini versus Shep Mariscal. This is a fun fight. This is going to be a good grappling match. I have Mariscal winning this one by decision. I believe he's the underdog. I want to say he's a slight underdog going into this one. Now I know his record doesn't look too pretty, sitting at 18-6, but he has a lot of experience against high-level fighters, dating back to his regional career. He's lost to guys like Gregory Gillespie, Bryce Mitchell, Joe Anderson Brito, Steve Garcia, and even on the regional scene, he does have a win over Yusuf Zalal and Pat Sabatini right there himself. They actually fought a long time ago on the regional scene. Now I know it was a long time ago, so not much stock goes into it. It was also a split decision, so a very close fight. So I won't put a whole lot of stock into it. I'm gonna go off what I know recently. Shep Mariscal, though, he's got really good scrambles. He's a good grappler. He's got really good cardio. He's tough as nails. He's a dog. And I worry about Pat Sabatini's chin. We've seen him get hurt a lot throughout his career. He's a little bit of a chinlet. And I think this is going to be a problem for him. I think Shep Mariscal, I think he's going to be able to handle Pat Sabatini in the grappling. Not handle as in dominate, but I think he's going to handle what Pat Sabatini brings to this fight in the grappling. And if this fight stays on the feet for a majority of it, I think Mariscal is going to have more moments. I could see Pat Sabatini banking around to this fight off control time, but ultimately I got Shep Mariscal winning a close decision, 29-28, we'll say. I think he gets this one done. Moving on up the card, the early prelim headliner, Kyle Daukaus versus GM3. I'm going to go with Kyle Daukaus here. He's coming off a big win over Michel Pereira where he got a round 1 knockout, a really nasty knockout too. He caught him, put him down really bad. And Gerald Meerschaert, I know he's a crafty vet himself, but I just think he's at a stage in his career where he's lost a few too many in a row. I mean, he's coming off a loss recently to Brad Tavares. That's not a good look, and it wasn't a close fight either. He was getting picked apart on the back foot by Brad Tavares for 3 rounds. If you're losing in that type of fashion to Brad Tavares in 2024, 2025, whatever it was, it's not a good look. I think Kyle Daukaus is going to go out there. I think he's going to get a win by knockout. Kyle Daukaus, he did look in his previous stint in the UFC prior to this comeback he's had. He did have a pretty rough go of things. He didn't look very good. He was getting knocked out a couple times. But since then, on the regional scene, he's been stacking up wins, a lot of them by knockout. He came back on short notice against Michel Pereira, who's way, 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 way more dangerous than Gerald Meerschaert. And he knocked him out in round 1. So I think he's going to find that knockout blow as well in this fight. And I'm going to have him getting this one done. I'll go round 2 KO. I think Meerschaert maybe withstands a little bit of an early storm, and then round 2, Kyle Daukaus gets him out of there. Another fight, moving on. Malcolm Wellmaker. I clicked on Cody Haddon. My apologies. Malcolm Wellmaker, Cody Haddon. I'm picking Wellmaker to win this fight. This is a tough one because these are both really good prospects. But when I was watching back Cody Haddon's fight with Nick Aguirre, I gotta be careful saying that one. When I was watching his fight back with Aguirre, he looked good. His pressure was good. His boxing was good. But his defense was terrible. He kept leaving his chin up in the air. And when he was throwing combinations, he did nothing to get his hand back to his chin to block shots coming back his way. And I think that's something you can't afford to do against Malcolm Wellmaker. We've seen how good Malcolm Wellmaker is fighting off the back foot with that counter-striking. His fight against Cameron Simon, where he caught him leaning back, and I think it was a check left hook, just completely sank Cameron Simon. It was a nasty knockout. Actually knocked him off his feet and down on his ass. He was out cold. Sick knockout from Malcolm Wellmaker. Obviously, that fight against Chris Moutinho, that was just a complete mismatch of a fight. This one's going to be a bit more competitive, I think, and I don't think it'll be. I think Haddon might give Wellmaker a bit of adversity, but I don't think it'll last long. He's good. He's got good grappling. He's a well-rounded fighter. But Wellmaker, man, he's got that dangerous power, and what I saw in Cody Haddon's fight in the striking defense looked really scary going into a fight against Wellmaker. So maybe after a close competitive round on the feet in round 1, I'll say like late into round 1, Malcolm Wellmaker finds a shot, puts him down, and finishes him off with ground and pound. Haddon's durable. Haddon's well-rounded, but just the striking defense I can't trust against someone as dangerous on the feet as Wellmaker. Moving on, Aaron Blanchfield versus Tracy Cortez. I'm going to go with Tracy Cortez in this one, and that might be a bit of a surprise because Blanchfield's not terrible, but I think Cortez has a good style to beat Aaron Blanchfield. She's got good takedown defense, and she's got good boxing, and Aaron Blanchfield's striking is piss poor. It's terrible. It's really sloppy. We saw in her fight with Manon Fiorot, she got absolutely schooled on the feet, and for all 5 rounds, she was charging in, throwing rushing combinations where she was just and it's not going to work against good strikers. Manon Fiorot was able to capitalize on that and just piece her up for 5 rounds and win an easy decision. I think Tracy Cortez, she has good enough grappling defense to keep this on the feet, and she's a much better boxer than Aaron Blanchfield. I also think something to make note of. We know who the UFC wants to win this fight, and that is Tracy Cortez. You see her in all these Bud Light ads and these partnerships with the UFC. Oh, win a meet and greet with Tracy Cortez. They're trying to push her. They're trying to push her. They want her at the top of this sport. And I think if it comes down to a close decision, that's something to make note of. I'm not saying it's going to be a robbery. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying if it is close, it is something to make note of. Yeah, she's really sloppy on the feet. Erin Blanchfield is, and I think Cortez is going to capitalize on that. And I think that's going to be the difference in this one. Blanchfield might pick up a round. She might be able to have some control in the grappling. I do worry maybe about her finding a submission. She is very strong and physical, but I trust Cortez and her experience. She has 2 pro losses. One of them was the first fight in her career, so I don't put much stock into that. And the other one was a short notice fight, 5 rounds at elevation against Rose Namajunas, which isn't a bad loss to have, especially filling it on short notice. So Tracy Cortez is good. She is good. I know she's just talked about for her looks and whatnot, but she actually is a very good fighter, and I think she has a good style to beat Erin Blanchfield. So I have her winning this one 29-28 by decision. Moving on, Roman Kopylov versus Gregory Rodriguez. I could have sworn RoboCop was ranked, but I guess not. I thought he was ranked at like 14 or 15. Maybe he was ranked at the time of the Jared Cannonier fight, but he fell out because of the loss he had. But I do have him getting a win in this fight. I think he's going to get this one done. Roman Kopylov is very good, and he's very dangerous on the feet with his kicks and stuff. But Gregory Rodriguez is a very, very big and tall middleweight. He's 6'3", which isn't the tallest for a middleweight, but he's a huge dude. I think Kopylov is going to have a hard time getting kicks up there and threatening him with those high kicks. He may be able to threaten him, but I don't think he's going to be able to clip him off the top of the head and knock out Gregory Rodriguez like he was able to do against Ribeiro. I don't think we're going to see a moment like that. And we've seen Kopylov really get bullied. He was completely shut down by Paulo Costa, who's not the most pressure-heavy fighter. Kopylov couldn't get anything going in that fight. He was really tentative, didn't throw much of anything on the feet, and he got completely picked apart for 3 rounds. And that's something you can't afford to do in front of RoboCop. Gregory Rodriguez is so dangerous on the feet, and he will march forward the entire fight. I think Gregory Rodriguez is going to get this one done. I think he's... do I pick decision or do I pick KO? What are we thinking? I'll go decision. I don't think he's going to KO Kopylov. I think he's also going to be able to find moments where he's able to control Kopylov in the clinch in this fight. Kopylov is not a big middleweight at all, and Gregory Rodriguez is a giant middleweight. I think if he pressures Kopylov up against the fence, and if he's feeling like, oh, Kopylov's landed some good shots on the back feet, he'll be able to get in the clinch and really muscle Rodriguez around. I know Kopylov's Russian, but he does not have good grappling. He was able to implement it against Cesar Almeida, but Almeida also has terrible grappling. So I don't think that matters much. But I think Gregory Rodriguez, he'll have the better optics because he'll be fighting on the front foot. He'll be putting that pressure on him. He'll land big shots because he has huge power. And I also think he's going to be able to have some moments where he controls him in the clinch. So I'll have Gregory Rodriguez getting this one done by a pretty clear decision. Kopylov may land some good shots, but I think Rodriguez will have more moments, and he'll have some clinch control. Bo Nickel, Rodolfo Vieira. Bo Nickel's comeback fight after his loss against Reiner de Ridder. I have him winning this one. And there's a few reasons for it. I do worry that he is very breakable, but I also feel as though, and he said this himself, that he was going into that fight feeling invincible. We saw how he was talking, saying stuff like, oh, if I were to fight Chimaev today, I would be lined as like a minus 400 favorite or something crazy like that. So he was really full of himself, and I think that loss to Reiner de Ridder kind of allowed him to take a step back and check his ego a little bit. And Rodolfo Vieira, I think he's a guy who's very capable of being controlled. We saw him lose to Andre Petroski, which is not a good look at all. Petroski is chinny as anyone on the feet, and he's not as elite of a wrestler as Bo Nickel. He's a little bit bigger than Bo Nickel, but I think Nickel will be able to control Rodolfo Vieira in this one. I think he'll be able to get on top, and I'm kind of counting on him to approach this fight in a different way than he has before. I know in the past he's I don't know if he's done it because he's scared of people's jiu-jitsu, like Reiner de Ridder and Paul Craig, but he stood and struck with them the whole time. And I don't think he has elite wrestling. We know this. And I think he's worried about potentially getting submitted from someone off bottom position. And the whole persona of being an elite wrestler with elite top control, and he can hang with Chimaev, all that stuff. I think he was worried about that coming crumbling down. But I want to see him implement the wrestling in this fight and lean on that control time. Don't chase submissions. land big shots of grounded pound, and just ride out on top position this fight. And I think he can get an easy win over Rodolfo Vieira. Now, I don't like predicting fights by saying what they should do or what I think they need to do to win this fight. I tend to look at what they have done in the past. And if I'm going off, Bo Nickal's most recent performance, I should be picking Rodolfo Vieira because he was broken, KO'd by a knee to a body, and just he completely wilted in that fight. But I think I trust him to implement the grappling and be able to hold Rodolfo Vieira down. Maybe get a submission, but I think I'm going to predict him to win this one by decision here. Moving on up to the main card, Beneil Dariush versus Benoit Saint Denis. Now, if MMA math is accurate, Beneil Dariush should win this fight because he beat Renato Moicano pretty convincingly, and Moicano decimated Benoit Saint Denis. But MMA math is historically inaccurate. I have Benoit winning this one. And I think back to that Dariush fight against Moicano in his last fight. Number one, he looks insanely slow. And he was getting backed up against the cage against Renato Moicano, who's not the most pressure-heavy guy. He's not going to blitz forward on the feet and really keep you backed up the whole time. Benoit is. So I have no doubt that Dariush is going to be on the back foot for this fight. And we saw Moicano knock him down bad in round one of that fight. I think if Moicano is finding that chin and putting you down and having you in a lot of danger early, I think Benoit Saint Denis is going to do the same. I think Benoit is going to get this one done by round 1 KO. Dariush is really slow. He's old. His chin is not the greatest anymore. Benoit has crazy pressure. He could try and implement the grappling, but I don't even want to see him go to this. Dariush is a really good grappler himself. I think it's pretty even. I actually think Dariush might have the edge in the grappling in this one. But Benoit, I think he needs to lean on that pressure and that knockout power that he has. And I think against the older, slower Beneil Dariush, I think he'll be able to find a KO blow. He also really bounced back well against Mauricio Rufy. That was a fight pretty much everybody was picking him to lose, and he went out there and shut Rufy down and got a round 2 submission. So I feel like he's got a little bit of momentum back. I think that's something to consider. He's got a momentum back. He's got that hype train a little bit built back up. We're not quite back where we were yet, but I think if he gets a round 1 KO over Dariush, he'll be back. And I think he's going to get that. I think he's going to get this one done early. Moving on, Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. I clicked on another person's name again. There we go. Got the fight pulled up here. I'm going to go with Carlos Prates. And I'm going to do it. I think if he wins, it'll be dominantly, but I also worry that Leon will be able to scoot around and be able to get him in the clinch and tie him up and implement the grappling a little bit. Leon's got really good grappling. He was able to get Bilal down and control him for an entire round. He was able to out-grapple Colby Covington up until round 5 of their fight. So he's got good grappling. He took down Kamaru Usman as well. He's got good grappling, but Carlos Prates is really lengthy. He's really hard to get down. I know Neil Magny is not at the level of Leon Edwards, but he completely shucked off any takedown attempts from Neil Magny. Also, the thing that I worry about with Leon is he's so tentative. He just doesn't throw. He's bullyable. I know his coach, don't let him bully you, Leon. I know he said that, but he is bullyable. Fighters can bully him, especially if you've got that pressure. We saw Sean Brady, pressure, and he was able to just completely ragdoll Leon Edwards and get a finish. I think Carlos Prates is going to be on him. I think he's going to be on him early. And we've seen Leon Edwards hurt by straight shots before. That's typically when guys find moments on Leon Edwards is with those straight shots. And Carlos Prates has the most dangerous, most powerful straight shots in the welterweight division. He got such a nasty 1-2. He's so long, and I think he's going to be able to find Leon Edwards on the chin, like a lot of guys haven't been able to, because Leon Edwards is pretty evasive. He is pretty hard to hit. But I don't think he's as evasive as Ian Gary. I don't think he's as evasive, and he's certainly not as lengthy. And I don't think he circles out as well as Ian Gary. So I don't think he's going to be able to play that game where he's fighting on the back foot and avoiding those power shots like Ian Gary was. I think Leon's going to have a hard time replicating that. I also think Carlos Prates has probably learned a lot from that fight. He learned a lot from that, I'm sure. Yes, this is a tough one. This is a tough one for Leon. I don't think he's going to be able to stick this one out. I worry about the grappling, man. I have a hard time picking Prates here. I'm going to. And I'm going to predict him to get it done by round 1 KO because I think Leon is too timid. But I can very well see Leon winning this fight. It'll either be a Prates knockout or it'll be a Edwards decision. But I'm going to go with Prates knockout. I think he's going to find that 1-2 down the pipe and sit Leon down, finish him off with ground and pound shots. I don't like the way Leon fights on the back foot against a guy like Carlos Prates in this one. It's going to be a tough fight for him. And I know he said he's excited to get back in there with a striker where he doesn't have to worry about grappling. And that is something to note. He's not going to have to worry about grappling, so maybe he'll be a little less tentative in this fight. But I don't know, man. I can't count on what I haven't seen recently from him. And he's a very timid fighter, and Prates is someone who's going to punish that against any fighter of that nature. So give me Carlos Prates, round 1 knockout. Moving on, another big welterweight matchup: Sean Brady versus Michael Morales. This is an awesome matchup. And this one feels like a true 50-50 to me. I'm having a really hard time picking this one. I did end up deciding on Sean Brady, though. I think he's going to get this one done. I'll even go round 3 sub. I think it'll be a very competitive fight. And Michael Morales is good. And if he can keep this standing, if he can shuck off the takedowns and keep Sean Brady on the feet, I think he wins, and I think he wins by KO. The problem is I've seen him in hairy situations where he's been controlled in the grappling against much lesser opponents. Against Adam Fugit, he took him to round 3, and in round 1 of that fight, Fugit had a lot of control time. He was able to get Michael Morales down and keep him there for a majority of that round. He's also had a lot of close fights against other not so good opponents. He had a really close fight, not a close fight, but he went to a decision with Nikolai Veretnikov on Contender Series a few years back, and Veretnikov sucks. Veretnikov is absolute dog shit. You will not see me in any of my videos picking Veretnikov to win. So taking him to a decision is a bit worrisome for me. And I think Sean Brady, I think this is his moment. He knows he's one win away from a title shot. He arguably is deserving of it right now. I think if Islam Makhachev wasn't moving up, that he'd be getting the shot right now. But he knows he's one win away from it, and I think he's going to go out there and put on one of the best performances of his career. He did a good job getting past the length of Leon Edwards and someone who's a little rangier and fights on the back foot and uses his kicks, uses his punch as well. He was able to get past that distance really well and work with him in the grappling. And I think Michael Morales, someone who's a bit of a similar stature to Leon, I think Brady will be able to get inside and get the takedowns. I do think Morales will have the edge on the feet, so I think it'll look earlier on in the rounds. I think Morales will be off to a good start. It'll look like he's winning. But once Brady's able to get him into that clinch and drag him down to the mat and work him on the ground, I think he'll take over. And I'm gonna say in round 3 he finds a submission win. I'll go maybe Kimura or something. Similar to the submission he got over Kelvin Gastelum. I hate this fight. Not that it's not a fun fight, and not that I'm not very excited for it. I just hate having to predict it because it's such a coin flip. If Morales is able to keep the standing, he wins. If Brady's able to get him down to the mat, I think he wins. And I'm going to count on Brady, who we've seen, albeit he did get knocked out by Bilal. Not knocked out, he got volume TKO'd where he was standing and the ref jumped in. It was a good stoppage by the ref. I'm not blaming the ref, but he wasn't like put out cold or something. That's not what I'm saying when he got knocked out by Bilal. I don't know. I just think Sean Brady, he's better right now at this stage in his career, and I think that win over Leon Edwards was so dominant, and it was against a similar style that Michael Morales poses, where I think he's going to be able to go out there and replicate that. Maybe not to as much success. I think Morales is better than Leon Edwards as it stands right now, but I do think he'll be able to get this one done. Moving on, the co-main event, Zhang Weili going up to flyweight to try and claim a second belt at 125 against Valentina Shevchenko. This is a sick fight, and there's another fight that I don't like predicting because it's a 50-50. I think this one's going to be a really, really close decision. I think it's however this goes, I think it'll be 48-47, and it'll come down to the wire. I think regardless of how this fight goes, I think there's going to be some controversy. There'll be people saying it's a robbery, but I'm going to go with Zhang Weili getting this one done. I think she's going to claim that second belt. Her wrestling is so smothering. Her grappling, she's so dominant on top position that when she gets you down there in those positions, and she'll usually keep you there for the entire round and just work you, just beat you up with ground and pound, threaten submissions. And I think that's going to wear on Valentina Shevchenko a lot more as the fight goes on. Shevchenko's got the striking advantage, no doubt about that. And I am a little wary about Zhang Weili getting caught with a head kick. Shevchenko has a really, really nice high kick, and we've seen Zhang Weili get knocked out by Rose with a high kick before. However, I think she's going to be drilling that in this camp, getting prepared for that. And I think she's just going to out-wrestle her in a majority of these rounds. Um, and it's also who's entering their prime and who's exiting their prime. Actually, I don't think Zhang Weili is really entering her prime. I think she's in the midst of it. But I think Valentina Shevchenko is sort of she's on the downhill. I know she just got her belt back, but it wasn't the most exciting performance against Alexa Grasso, and that was, 3 fight trilogy with her where she lost one of them, won one of them. I'll say won two of them because she should have won the second fight, but either way, um, Alexa Grasso, I don't think she's all that great herself. I mean, we saw Natalia Silva, I believe it was, who just completely schooled her on the feet. Didn't let it be competitive at all versus Valentina Shevchenko, who had 3 competitive fights with her. Um, I think Shevchenko, she's exiting her prime. Zhang Weili's in the middle of it. I trust that her grappling and her top control is good enough to be able to win 3 rounds with it. And I think she'll be able to hold her own on the feet too. I think she's pretty good there. She wouldn't be at the level she's at without having good striking. So I'm gonna have Zhang Weili getting this one done by 48-47, very very close decision. Now we'll move on to the big one, Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev. Now, if you watched my last video where I did a really in-depth breakdown of it, if you haven't watched it, I recommend you go watch it because I go beyond just the basic, style matchup here, and I go beyond skill versus skill. What are each guys good at? I go into like the real nitty-gritty of how I think each of their strengths will do well against each other and how I think their weaknesses will cause problems for them going into this matchup. But if you watched that fight already, I did pick Jack Della Maddalena to win. I think he's going to get a late TKO, a volume TKO against the fence. I think he's going to mix up one of his classic combinations, body, body, head, and sit Islam down in round 4, round 5, and get a TKO win. Now, I'm picking him to win this fight, but it is a true 50-50, just like a lot of these fights on this card are. That's why I've waited until today to post this video. I would have had it out on Sunday, but I'm so torn on so many of these fights. This one I'm not too torn on though. I'm going with Jack. I've picked Jack for a while to win this fight. I'm sticking with my prediction here. We know how good his scrambles are. We saw it in his fight with Bilal, with his fight with Burns. He's got elite scrambling, and it's only going to get better with him training with Craig Jones. Now, where I worry though is that Islam Makhachev, he's not a traditional wrestler like Bilal Muhammad is. Bilal's a guy who's going to work the double leg and try and get you down. He's going to pressure you up against the fence, blast a double leg, get you down, work you on the ground, and focus on controlling you. Islam Makhachev is very good at finding submissions during scrambles. We saw it in his fight with Renato Moicano when Moicano was trying to get back up to the feet, caught him in that Darce choke, subbed him in round 1. I really do worry about that because Jack's going to scramble in this fight. He's not going to stay on bottom position and just accept where he's at. He's going to scramble a lot, and that'll leave openings for Islam Makhachev. Now, will Jack Della Maddalena's defense, so his submission defense, be good enough to not allow Makhachev to sink in those chokes? That's the big question with this one. And I'm going to trust that training with Craig Jones. I'm going to trust it. We saw Volkanovski be able to withstand the grappling against Islam Makhachev and even have his own moments of success sometimes. Yeah, I mean JDM, he's obviously got the advantage on the feet. He's got slick boxing. He's really good fighting on the back foot and fighting forward. Islam Makhachev's also an elite striker too. I don't want to gloss over that. He's got incredible boxing. He's got really good kicks. His high kick is very dangerous. He's really defensively sound. He does a good job at not getting hit. He does a good job at sliding out of range of big punches. Jack's going to have a hard time hitting him. He's a lot more evasive than Bilal Muhammad is. But I do think Jack Della Maddalena is a considerably better striker. I think he's a top 5 striker at least in the sport, maybe top 3. We'll see where he stacks up after this fight, where I want to put him. But I think he's one of the best when it comes to striking this sport. He is so slick. His defense is really good as well. He does a great job of not getting hit. His combinations, mixing it up to the body and the head is so good. He does a really good job at maintaining distance. He does a good job at utilizing the teep kick. He has a really nasty jab, which if you watch back that Dustin Poirier fight, Islam was getting tagged up by that jab quite a bit. So I worry that fighting a bigger, faster, more in his prime, and better scrambler version of Dustin Poirier, I think Jack Della Maddalena all around is better than Dustin Poirier that was in that fight with Islam Makhachev. I think he's a better version of that 2024 version of Poirier. I worry about that for Islam. I do worry about that a lot. I think JDM's going to find a home for that jab a lot. I think he's going to use it to keep that distance between the two of them. He also does a good job at after he throws a jab, getting low, meeting guys low to stop the takedown. He does a really good job at that. He implemented that well against Bilal. And I know people say that Bilal, he chose not to wrestle. He chose not to wrestle. Number one, he had 9 takedown attempts, which only 1 or 2 of them I think were successful. And number two, JDM wasn't giving him opens to shoot the takedown. If Bilal shot a takedown on JDM half the time, he would be going straight into JDM's head, and JDM would easily defend that. So he does that well, keeping a low base. He also relies on really good head movement, which was a big change between the Gilbert Burns fight and the Bilal Muhammad fight. He kept a high guard against Gilbert Burns, where Burns was able to get under that and get the takedowns. Against Bilal Muhammad, there'd be times where he'd kind of keep his hands low when he knew he was safe, so that if Bilal did shoot in, he'd have the underhooks ready. But Islam Makhachev, he's got multiple different ways of getting JDM down. I do think he's going to have more success in the grappling than Bilal did. Like I mentioned earlier, Bilal is a traditional wrestler. He pressures you, gets you up against the fence, shoots a double leg. That's about all there is to his takedown. It's a lot easier to defend than Islam, who has that Sambo background, where he has those throws and where he has those sweeps, where he can do so much more, especially when he gets you up against the cage. He can do so much more in getting you down. So I do worry about that quite a bit for Jack Della Maddalena. But I'm going to trust that the scrambling is as good as we've seen it. I think he'll only get better with that, continuing to train with Craig Jones, continuing to work on that submission defense. And the big X factor in this fight, this is where the difference lies. I would be leaning towards Islam Makhachev probably if they had equally good cardio. But we've seen Islam Makhachev sort of break late into fights, especially against fighters that aren't fighting on short notice. Against Volk in his first fight, Volk nearly had him out of there in round 5, had him in a lot of danger. Islam was looking up at the clock, tired. He was riding that fight out on bottom position, just trying to get to that final bell. Dustin Poirier in round 4 of his fight with Islam Makhachev, he was really ripping him to the body. Islam Makhachev was just tying him up in the tie clinch, trying to buy time, and Poirier was ripping shots to the body, and he was winning that round. And I thought that was pretty clear, Poirier round. I think it might have been the only round he won in that fight, but he was really starting to turn the tide there. And I think if Jack Della Maddalena gets you in a position like that where you're wilting late into a fight, I think there's a good chance he can capitalize on that and put you out. So for me, the big thing with this one is Jack Della Maddalena staying safe and surviving the early submission threats from Islam. If he can get out of the first couple rounds where he will be sweaty as the fight goes on, so he'll be harder to control. He'll be harder to lock up into submissions. If he can survive any early submission attempts from Islam Makhachev and build into this fight and keep this fight standing, I think he's going to find that late momentum, and I think he's going to get a late, I'll say round 4, round 5 TKO against the fence, and I think he'll retain that 170-pound belt. But this is a tough fight for me to predict. This is a really even matchup. Two guys who are both extremely skilled in their respective areas of the sport, and it's a sick matchup. I'm super excited for it, and I look forward to being back on Saturday night, or it'll be Sunday morning by the time I'm making the video. But I can't wait to watch this card, and I can't wait to get back and make a recap video of it. So that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys next video. See ya.